speaking of Ed Miliband, Benedict, we've got more bad news from the United Nations, who've decided to tell us that once again we're at the point of collapse of the planet. They've issued yet another report to say that basically if we don't all stop burning fossil fuels and driving around in diesel cars, the world's going to end pretty soon.
How many days is it? 17 days?
Something like that. I mean, I don't really know. Don't care. All I know is that there's a list as long as your arm of all the times they said the Earth was going to end, and apparently we're still here.
I was going to say, it's either that or until the NHS collapses, and they're on a permanent race to see which one is going to collapse first, the climate or the health service.
In fact,
neither of them ever does.
I'm still expecting we have this will be the 1st October we've got to, if we get to all the way to the end until the 1st November next week, and we haven't been told there's only 24 hours to save the NHS.
Yeah.
Which I think were words uttered by Ed Miliband.
Almost certainly. I mean, and what you're going to have to do is sort of not burn any coal in order to save the NHS. I'm surprised that hasn't actually become the state religion so far as that climate change is what's killing the NHS rather than Tory incompetence. Though given that Labour are now in government, that'll probably what they pivot to, and that what you're going to have to do is live in a tent and basically just live off beans and not eat any meat or anything like that, because it'll be discovered that beef causes cancer or something like that.
Buy some gloves. I mean, I'm going to get in my petrol-driven car after this show. I'm going to drive it down to where I stay at the weekends, and I'm going to fire up the wood-burning stove just because I want to. It's not even that cold, but I'm just going to do it.
I discovered this recently, having become a homeowner, and I was wondering about reopening the fireplace, and all the regulations are about what you can and can't burn in your own grate in central London.
I know.
Oh, it radicalised me.
It's ridiculous.
I can't bet an Englishman who not allowed to set a fire in his own grate unless he has this very specific brand of coal that doesn't emit any kind of smoke. And you just think, unbelievable. How on earth we became an imperial power?
It is absolutely ludicrous. Let's talk about the front page of the Sun, because it's one of those great stories that has a great headline, but perhaps isn't the world's greatest story. But it's basically about a nuclear submarine ran so low on food during a 6-month patrol that its sailors were ordered to share rations. And I'll let you read out the headline. Yeah,
the headline is "The Hunt for Bread October," which I think that person deserves
it is a great
bonus.
headline.
Whoever came up with that, that's very good. I mean, the actual story itself, yes, it's one of those stories where you kind of think, is it a big story? It seems to talk a lot to the fact that we don't have sufficient capacity in our nuclear deterrent to run the subs at the rate that they're supposed to. So this one was at sea for 6 months.
It's a bit of a worry that they haven't put enough food on the boat, though, isn't it?
I mean,
that sounds like a management error to me.
Very
How
classic.
much food do you need? I mean, for 6 months, it's not that difficult to work it out.
Perhaps just one particularly fat bloke in there who's just absolutely torn through it. But I mean, this does come amidst the fact that I think at any one stage we have had on average 2 of our 4 submarines have been in for maintenance, and we're not able to get them seaworthy again. And of course, this comes off the tail of the test firing of the Trident missile earlier this year that failed.
That was the one that Grant Shapps went on, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that perhaps we shouldn't be talking about too loudly, because the Russians can speak English. But our nuclear deterrent isn't in the best shape. No. It really is a bit embarrassing.
I think what we'd call not much of a deterrent.
Yes.
Let's talk about the state of play in Samoa, though, because the King's there. I think he's coming home soon because he needs some more cancer treatment. Keir Starmer, we mentioned earlier, was out there looking very uncomfortable and very sort of out of place, sitting in this room. And he was wearing no tie. Some people suggested yesterday, didn't Lord Ali buy many ties? You know, why can't he wear a tie? But also now it looks as though, it's beginning to look as though he's making sounds about actually paying reparations in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, I mean,
because of course we knew he would, because he said he wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. He said he wouldn't because Rachel Reeves presumably had said, well, look, even I can't match up that amount of money if you want to do slavery reparations. But now we're getting the sort of dithering, maybe we'll address it. We'll
I've had to sit in a room with these people and they've forced me into saying this. Have a look at this.
I'm just clear in my mind that, yes, we must acknowledge history and absolutely recognise the abhorrence of the slave trade, and that's very important. But at the same time, we have to answer the question, which is being put to me, which is, how can you help us with resilience now?
That sounds to me like he's about to give them a load of money.
Yeah, but that's
so
ultimately...
tax everybody in Britain, give the money away to people who were not alive at a time when we supposedly did terrible things to them, and we weren't alive then either.
Yeah, you were going to be asked to pay for things that people you never met and weren't actually related to, did to other people who also aren't alive and aren't necessarily related to the people who want it. I mean, ultimately, one thing that I always notice about...
It's the ultimate grift, isn't it? It's the grift from beyond the grave.
The listeners don't need me or you to go into this because it's been done over so many times, and because it's been done over so many times. That's how you know the Labour Party are going to plough on with it anyway. Yeah. But honestly, one thing that always strikes me is it's never the successful countries that seem to feel very strongly about this. You never get the sort of the mass campaign by all the tens of thousands of people who were transported against their will to Australia and New Zealand. There's no call for reparations from them because they have a functioning economy and they know how this works. So any other countries
and
where
they're
people...
also actually doing okay, rather like an awful lot of these other countries in the Caribbean who are doing a lot better than their counterparts in Africa.
Yeah, and there again, another part of the conversation is, are they going to go to Nigeria and say, you know how you captured and enslaved my ancestors and sold me to these white people, can I have some money? But as I say, it's always the countries with the very large, oversized presidential palaces, which, you know, sort of per square foot take about 10% of the entire island, that turn around and go, we're going to need a bit more money, and there is no upper limit, I'm afraid. But, you know, I can't remember who it was who said there is no price that you can put on this trauma. And you go, but you're going to come up with a number, aren't you? You'll find a way.
Also, it doesn't help Keir Starmer, does it, when David Lammy, his very own Foreign Secretary, was demanding reparations when he was in opposition?
Serious questions, I think, actually, about the role of David Lammy as Foreign Secretary, given that when he was in opposition, he was referring to himself as a Caribbean man, not as a British man. And you think, well, what are you doing in that role? And
I thought the
Caribbean countries themselves saying, well, we want this guy to negotiate on this because he's literally said it is on camera that this is what he wants. But, I mean, the fact that he was made Foreign Secretary at all, given the really silly things he said, not just about Donald Trump, but, you know, referring to ethnic cleansing in Armenia as liberation for the Azeri people. You think, how much longer can this man actually stay in place? And how much longer do we think until he says something else catastrophically stupid? Well, a couple of hours, maybe.
Probably a couple of hours, Speaking of which, a couple of hours from now, about a bit more longer than that, away than that, the clocks go back this weekend. On Saturday night, you get an extra hour's sleep. Piece of the Telegraph says dogs don't like it. Apparently it upsets their feeding habits. And I'm absolutely I'm on with this because my dog gets fed his dinner at 4 o'clock every afternoon, right? When the clocks go back, it's going to be 3 o'clock. And so when he gets to 3 o'clock, he starts looking at you, going, what's going on? And you go, well, it's only 3 o'clock. And, you know, these will be the conversations I'll be having with him on Sunday.
This is the tyranny of having a pet. Most people now have pets because they can't afford children in London, but actually the pet never learns about the concept of time or patience, so it's a perpetual 10 to 20 year thing.
We want to talk about dogs a lot today because this is a great story. I think it's absolutely spot on because I know for a fact that my dog will give me the eyes at 3 o'clock on Sunday and he'll be just going, what? Well, what are you doing? And I'll be going, it's only 3 o'clock. I'm not doing anything. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Benedict, thank you very much indeed.